Welcome to this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I'm your host, Ril Quinn, recording this, of course, on a Monday, fresh off a week of people seeing people and seeing this DMV area try to navigate this, 6 to 8 inches of snow. Uh, it was just a lot of ice, a lot of a lot of different, a lot of uncomfortable situations from a standpoint of um, what transpired over the week in regards to transportation and what have you. But we are back, seemingly headed towards some normalcy from that standpoint. But we got some bigger fish to fry up in the DMV, up in the country. We'll talk about that. Of course, this is a episode 1038, straight to the mattresses. We will discuss that. But we begin with Super Bowl 60. We are less than a week away from Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara, as the Seahawks and New England will fight to be world champions. Of course, Seattle seeking their second championship, and New England seeking to break the tie with Pittsburgh with their seventh Super Bowl appearance, seventh Super Bowl win. Now, there's a lot, and we'll talk about this over the course of the podcast. There's a lot going on in the country, in the world today, right now. And the reason I say that, I don't feel the excitement. Now, again, it's Tuesday. Excuse me, it's Monday. By the time you hear this podcast, it will be Tuesday. Don't hear people really amped up about this game as a nation, and understandably so from a standpoint of what's going on. But and again, that will have no effect on the ratings and what have you. It's a Super Bowl. The game is bigger than what happens on the field. It's a Super Bowl. It will be the highest rated television event of 2026 for sure. But I think I look at these two teams. These teams are not, you know, kind of boring, to be perfectly honest with you. Like when you compare it to the last time these franchises met, um, 11 years ago in the 2014 season, you had you had an iconic coach, Bill Belichick. You had a legendary quarterback in Tom Brady trying to win their first Super Bowl in a decade. That was a big time story. You had Seattle trying to repeat under Pete Carroll and become a dynasty. You have Beast Mode, Marshawn Lynch, the Legion of Boom. Uh, you had Gronk. So there was a lot of juice going into that game. That game was highly anticipated. Certainly lived up to the billing, especially what transpired in those last couple of minutes with one, of course, one of the worst offensive calls in the history of the playoffs with the Russell Wilson interception to Malcolm Butler. This time around, these are two buttoned-up franchises. These two franchises, I don't think you're going to hear about any off the field events, off the field bullshit coming out between these two teams. You got Drake May's shoulder. You have two quarterbacks that were not expected to be playing in this game this year. Of course, there are storylines. Sam Darnold, his redemption story, his kind of like his revenge on all the doubters and naysayers out there, and he had the naysayers, rightfully so, in terms of the naysayers up until the Ram performance that was epic a couple weeks ago. And in Drake May, you have a budding star quarterback who is trying to etch his place amongst the elites of the game. Drake May wins the Super Bowl this year. you have to put him right there as one of the top quarterbacks in the league. That's all there is to it. I don't think he. I can't put him over. I don't won't think he's a better quarterback than Josh Allen or even Lamar Jackson, but he has been mentioned in those conversations for sure. Um, for sure. But this is, minus what's going on in the world today, and how that could how certainly that is galvanizing and keeping our attention, and rightfully so. This game doesn't have a lot of juice to it. It doesn't have. There's not a lot of unless you're a Seattle or Seahawk fan or a Patriot fan. Uh, the build up of this game is kind of like, all right, I'll see what happens when the game gets there, and maybe the biggest story out there. I mean, there are two major stories out in the NFL that I think have overtaken the Super Bowl. Is one, Bill Belichick not getting into the Hall of Fame, and Robert Kraft probably getting into the Hall of Fame, and two, the fact that you have 10 brand new coaches being hired, and none of them are black. Those two stories have easily, to me, taking front and center over this Super Bowl. To be honest with you, right now. So again, it's not. Listen, I am for me. I'm about the game. The narratives are fine. Excuse me. The narratives, we love great narratives. That's fine. But it's all to me. It's all about the game and what happens in the game. If we go out there, we get a classic or a highly competitive game, then no one's going to care about the fact that that the fact that people were not pumped up coming into this football game. But I find it very interesting. Um, in one of the more exciting NFL season, like this has been one of the more exciting NFL seasons in recent memory, with all the one score games, with all the with some of the stuff, with some of the quality of football that we see in the playoffs, all the close games in the playoffs. That now we have a Super Bowl that seems to be missing something. There's something missing leading up to the Super Bowl. Uh, you can call it star power. You can call it. I mean, these market. Well, New England's a major market. Yeah, I mean, these are major markets. I wouldn't call Seattle a small market. Seattle's been both these teams have won Super Bowls before, so it's not that. But right now, in terms of the the it factor, the you want to call it the game's Q rating, those are kind of low right now. So it'll be very interesting to see as the week goes along if things start to pick up as far as the anticipation and the excitement of what this game could possibly be. Um, I like I like Seattle in a very, very close game. I would not be the least bit surprised if New England won this game. New England is extremely well coached, and again, New England is a very disciplined team. They, I think, a lot of people are just. Vrabel is a tremendous coach, and he's been there before as a player. He's won three Super Bowls. Of course, playing under Bill Belichick during the Patriots dynasty. That team will be more than ready and prepared to play. So I expect a highly competitive game, but ultimately, I think Seattle from like mid September, from late September on, from early October, early to mid October on, has been the most complete and the best team in all of football. So the NBA kind of took center stage with the NFL having a week off between the championship game and the Super Bowl. Um, a couple of things that happened. Number one, you have of course, you had the return of Joker on Friday. He went out there and did what he did, just what had like 31, 12, and 5 in about 23 minutes or 25 minutes. I think it was 23, either 23 or 25 minutes in a win against the Clippers. And they had a game last night against Oklahoma City, a rematch of the Western Conference semifinals. That epic 7 game series where, of course, Oklahoma City went on to win against a banged up Denver team. That, of course, Aaron Gordon limping, Michael Porter Jr. wasn't playing basically with with a bad shoulder and that what have you. Um, it's very rare that you watch a player in real time go to another level. Like it's something that just happens over a couple of years, or maybe in the seat over in a season, or even over the course of a postseason run. Last night in real time, Shea Gilgeous Alexander went to another level. That was a masterpiece performance last night. Um, Now nights, he's had bigger scoring nights, um, but it was his overall, and he had a great night um, with the 34 points and 12 assists. Uh, on just a great, just ridiculous efficiency from the free throw line and from the field. But it was just something he came into that game looking to absolutely make a statement. 34 points, 13 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 steals on 68% from the field, and it only took 1 3. Went to the free throw line 13 times. Did have 4 turnovers, but they were not impactful turnovers. He absolutely came into that game with no Jalen Williams, no Alex Caruso. Again, not making just stating the facts here, not making any excuses for Oklahoma City. Denver's playing without a couple of people, Christian Brown, and more importantly, Aaron Gordon, who you have to be concerned with how his hamstring has, those hamstring issues that he's had over the course of the season. That is the one of the bigger question marks in the Western Conference. I mean, not if not in the league. Like Aaron Gordon literally makes Denver a team that can beat anybody, including Oklahoma City, in a playoff series if he's healthy. We'll see how healthy he gets, but SGA was in total control of that game from start to finish. Um, it was a type of control that you see all time greats reach, and it was the body language. What his game told you last night is, I not only do I think that I'm the best player in the world, I know that I'm the best player in the world. Now we can, I think, and I think most people probably would say that Nikola Jokic is the best player in the world. But when you see a player go to something happens to a player when they go to that level, it's rare again. It's very rare that you see it happen in real time in a game where it's like, oh, okay, he's not this guy is not the same player he was last year, not the same player that he was, in October or November. And that's what I saw last night. Again, made every right made was not forcing. He only took 16 shots. He only took 16 shots. Um, for the season, he's basically averaging 32 points on 56% from the field, and he plays both ends of the floor. So I get a sense that, like, and the thing about SGA is he knows when his team needs him to facilitate. He knows when his team needs for him to obviously to carry the scoring load. Like Casey Wallace had a big game. I think hit like 7 3-pointers. Might hit 8 3 points, 27 points. I think he had eight. Let's say how many threes. I can look that up here. Wallace hit 7 3 points, was 7 11 from the 3 point range. Had a big, huge game, 27 points. SGA knew. Let me get this guy like. Let me get this guy to basketball. I can score what I want. This guy's on fire. I'm going out my way to get him the basketball. Again, there was something in his. You can just see. I can see it. I can only imagine if I had been at the game, that I definitely would have picked up on it. But I picked up on it from just watching it, just the body language and the mindset that he had last night. February, a February game, a game. Well, not a must win, but a game that you want to be able you want to let Denver kind of know what time it is. Kind of let them know what time it is. From a standpoint of, hey, we're still OKC. Nothing's going to be decided in February, of course. But I thought that was a very, very interesting, a very epic, just a virtuoso performance by SGA and a nice win from OKC. And I'll say this about OKC. Um, I'm not the least bit concerned about OKC if they're healthy. Um, Now, they need Jalen Williams to win a championship, pure and simple. They need Jalen. They need Jalen Williams to win a championship. They need him playing at near the level that he was when he was All NBA, All Defensive last year. That goes without saying to me. But that team, they still have top to bottom the best team. They have you know the second best player, easily the second best player in the world, and a guy who could be called the best player in the world at the end of the season, depending on what happens in the postseason. And remember this about the Western Conference. I was looking at some numbers. Last 15 games, these are some of the records. The Clippers have the best record of any Western Conference team in the last 15 games at 11-4. Denver is 10-5. Golden State 9-6. Houston 9-6. Minnesota 9-6. OKC 9-6. Phoenix 9-6. San Antonio 8-7. I don't know why the Lakers isn't are not on there. The Lakers are 7-8. Excuse me. So those teams in the Western Conference have been beating up on each other, like in a major way. They've been beating up on each other. You have a bunch of teams over the league. The league is so talented. There are really no easy wins from night to night. I mean, the Hornets. You know who has the best when you know who has the best point differential net rating in the last 15 games? The Charlotte Hornets. They have a net rating of 11. They're 10-5. They've won. Believe they've won 6 straight games, maybe even 7 straight games or 7 straight games. Um, so that just lets you know, like the league is a lot of talent spread out in the NBA right now. Um, if you win, like I said, I think they'll at most you'll have probably two teams possibly win 60 games. I actually don't even think the Pistons are going to win 60 games. I think OKC will be the only team this year that wins 60 games. You're not going to have like between 60, probably 60 and 62, I would say. But that's it. You're going to have a number of teams in that 45 to 50 win range. 50 win range this year. The league is just too deep and it's too talented. So you had a showdown on Saturday of the projected two top NBA draft picks in Darryn Peterson and AJ Dybansta. Um, it did not live up to the billing. The game for a multitude of reasons. Dybansta, for him, had an off game, even though he shot 6 of 12, had about I think about 17 points, had a bad first half. Started coming on in the late in the first half. It had a decent second half, but really never got into a rhythm, especially coming off the type of games that he had came off like a 43. He had like a 43-point game last week, and had been has been obviously tremendous throughout the course of the season. So for him, he had a bad game. Not AJ, excuse me, Darryn Peterson, 18 points in 20 minutes, had a big first half, really came out aggressive, and again scored. This guy is just a natural, was just born to score, and he had played. He not only was he scoring, he was was playing both ends of the floor. Had a couple of steals. It kind of was all over the place, but only played three. But only played 3 minutes in the second half. And I want to say this: this is a draft where you cannot miss on a number one pick. You can't. You cannot miss on the number one pick in this draft. It just absolutely cannot happen. Um, because it's too talented. Like in any, you have four guys who in any regular draft would be the number one pick. Peterson, Dybansta, Caleb Wilson, and Cam Boozer. In any regular draft, those four guys you could make a case for those four guys being the number one pick. I say that, say all that. I mention that because I'm extremely concerned about Darryn Peterson's durability. He's only played 11 games this season. He's had, some hamstring issues. He's had cramping issues. He's on a minutes restriction, which I've been watching college basketball for close to 30 for over 35 years. I've never seen a player in all my lifetime, in my entire lifetime of watching college basketball be on a minutes restriction. Never, ever. And that's problematic. If you're trying college, you play what, 35 to 40 games, 30, 35 to 38 to 40 games. NBA is an 82 game season, minus without the playoffs. So, is he struggling already physically to get through a college season? What is he going to do in the NBA? It is a absolute concern. Again, he will not go below two. He won't go below two. But again, I don't see how you can take him at number one with as many talented guys around him as you have. Like there are years like looking at 2009 draft. Um, so you had a couple guys go back to back who came into the NBA injured um, in back to back years in Blake Griffin and Kenyon Martin. Kenyon Martin broke his leg right before the NCAA tournament. He still ended up being the number one pick. 2009 draft, you know, Blake Griffin goes number one. Um, has a knee injury and doesn't play the entire season. No one knew, and you look at that draft. Yeah, Blake Griffin, Hashim Thabit, James Harden, Tariq Evans, Ricky Rubio, Johnny Flynn, Stephen Curry. No one knew Stephen Curry was going to be Steph Curry. No one knew James Harden was going to be James Harden, even though they both went in the top seven picks. DeMar DeRozan was in that draft as well. So there was a situation where there was no other guy who was remotely close to Blake Griffin as a number one prospect. They're like, we will, Tariq Evans was in that draft as well. We will wait for Blake Griffin. Despite his injury, we're going to take Blake Griffin. So there was nobody comparable to Blake Griffin from that standpoint, based off potential. So that was understandable. And the 2000 draft, not back to back years, excuse me. Um, the 2000 draft when you had Kenyon Martin, that draft that was a notoriously bad draft. Um, yeah, that 2000 draft was horrible as well. I mean, Stromile Swift, Darius Miles, Marcus Fizer, Mike Miller, DeMar Johnson, Chris Milne, Jamal Crawford. Again, no one was even close to Kenya Martin as far as what type of prospect that they thought he was going to be. Hey, breaks his leg. Okay, well we can wait on him. Cool. It's not the case in this year's draft. It's not in the least bit. Best of 1996. Looking back at the best of sports, movies, pop culture, music in the year 1996. This week, we look at the hit movie Mission Impossible, the first Mission Impossible one, MI1. Of course, this came out in 1996. Starred Tom Cruise, was directed by Brian De Palma. This movie had a budget of $80 million. It grossed $457 million. It was the first movie that was connected with the Tom Cruise's newly formed production company CW. That, of course, that was his partner along with his production partner Paula Wagner, who would help him produce uh, the first three Mission Impossibles. Um, you look back at this movie. First of all, I hadn't seen this. I hadn't seen Mission Impossible one in about, I want to say, about 15 years. To be honest with you, I really can't remember the last time I seen the first Mission Impossible. It's been at least what more than 10 years, maybe maybe close to 15 years. This this was a pure plot, storyline, character driven movie. You had you had two major uh, scenes in terms of special effects or in terms of stunts. There was the fish tank explosion, and there was the ending in the scene at the end of the movie with the helicopter flying inside a tunnel that basically in essence ended the movie. So that was it. This was story driven. This was a bunch of betrayals, a bunch of the idea of trying to of De Palma and the writers who were trying to trick the audience with not with not wanting you to know who's a bad guy and who can you trust, who can you not trust. And I'll be honest with you, this I even to this day, and again, I'm not the old man get off my lawn and to say, oh, they don't, these new Mission Impossibles haven't been can't compare to the first one, but the first one was the best one. This was the best one, uh, because of that, because it was story driven and because it was plot driven. And I was really surprised when I was reading a lot of reviews about it and a lot of reviews and retrospectives on it. A lot of people, a lot of people were complaining about how they didn't understand the plot in comparisons to. And I guess, of course, these were taken back in 1996. But I'm telling you right now, they probably I can't imagine they probably would hate the next six Mission Impossibles because this by far was the most easy easy Mission Impossible plot and storyline to follow by far. It's not even close. Um, out of all the Mission Impossibles, and I think you have Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is at a great stage in his career. You look at where he's at in his career as far as the movies that he's making. He goes so he has the Firm in 1993. Um, Let's pull up his IDM here. He's in the midst of his best stretch of movies of his entire career, in terms of the streak that he was at, in terms of where he was at. Uh, so in '93 he has The Firm, '94 Interview with a Vampire, and then Interview with a Vampire, Mission Impossible in '96, Jerry Maguire in '96. Of course, he was nominated for an Oscar for Jerry Maguire. Um, and then Eyes Wide Shut '99, Magnolia '99, again nominated for an Oscar, Best Actor Oscar or Best Actor Oscar in in Magnolia in '95, or Best Supporting, excuse me, in '99, and then Mission Impossible 2 in 2000. So he's probably in probably one of his better stretches of his entire career. I can make a case at that point and at that stage of his career. Um, and this movie, again, uh, really, this was a career turn for him, because this really was his first action movie. This would lead to the Jack Reachers. This would lead to, of course, he's made six more Mission Impossibles. You see him in Jack Reacher. You see him in those type of movies. So this change. This was a change. This movie was a game changer for his entire career. To be honest with you, the original cast did not like this Mission Impossible. They you had one of the cast members walked out of the theater. You had Peter Graves, Greg Morris was one of the cast members. He walks out the theater halfway to it, ha, um, halfway through the movie. Peter Graves, who played Jim Phelps, who was a character on the original television show, said that he didn't turn down the reprisal of the role in this movie, in this Mission Impossible, saying that he didn't like the way the Jim Phelps character would be portrayed. Of course, anybody if you seen Mission Impossible 1, you know Jim Phelps turns out to be the mole and turns out to be the traitor and dies at the end. He wasn't feeling that. They fired you know, Cruise fires one of the music people. One of the fires a music person, one of the music people, and it has the score redone. But despite that, again, released first ever movie released in 3,000 theaters, grosses $457 million on a $80 million budget, and came in under budget and was released on time. And again, you compare this to the other six Mission Impossibles, by far the weakest special effects action stunts. It's not even close. Like especially if you look at Mission Impossible 1 versus Mission Impossible 2, and I think I'm actually gonna go on the rabbit hole and probably rewatch all of them, because rewatch all of them just to see how they progress. But the stuff he was doing in Mission Impossible 2 with the motorcycles and shit, some of the shit that he was doing was just wild. Um, a couple of the fish tank scene was interesting because you have the explosion at the fish tank scene. If you remember, he's meeting Kittredge. Kittredge has told him, "Hey, we basically this is when he finds out. Ethan Hunt finds out that there was another there was another IMF team that they're trying to find out who the mole was, and that Kittredge says, hey, basically says, Henry Ziersey, who plays Kittredge, who ended up being in the last Mission Impossible that just came out in 2025. He basically says they're at this restaurant that's a glass window, that's glass windows where the whole restaurant is glass windows and a bunch of fish tanks. And Brian De Palma said that they tried to do the stunt with a stunt man, but it didn't look realistic. So they recommended that Ethan Hunt, that Tom Cruise did the stunt. And despite the fact that he could have easily drowned, because there was an explosion, the scene had explosion. You had water going and glass going everywhere. Like literally, he could have. I read this in my research. Literally, Tom Cruise could have died and drowned. That would have been it. But I mentioned that because don't think that like Brian Tom Cruise didn't need and we come to find out that Tom Cruise obviously did not need a lot of help with doing some of these death defying stunts that people get nervous about at every Mission Impossible that moving forward, where he was like, yo, you're gonna end up dying one of these days. He's gonna die on the set because doing these crazy stunts. So that was De Palma. That was De Palma's idea. There were rumors that um, De Palma did and Tom Cruise did not get along. Nothing's come out of that. Here's what I will say: that was the only Mission Impossible that De Palma ever made. But even with that being said, I think De Palma knew where the franchise was headed as far as, and De Palma knew where the movie industry was headed as far as CGI effects and things of that nature. So he was a guy that, again, this guy was about story. He was a guy, did a lot of stuff, film noir, things of that nature. If you go look at his catalog of films, not a special effects guy. Like he's not. That's not how he moves. So he probably knew, like, hey, this is gonna be a one and done. It was, again, it was for the amount of success that they had in the box office. It was I think the critics were basically split on it. I heard some great things about it with Tom Cruise, but also I heard more negative stuff about it than I remember. As a kid, I saw this in the theater. Um, I saw this at the Dollar Theater in 1996, and it was definitely something that when it came out on HBO, and this is a time when movies didn't come out 2 months after they released in the theater. Like you had to wait basically a year for the movie. If the movie was released in May of 1996, it probably didn't come on HBO until like what, March or April of 1997. Yeah, back in the good old days when there was no streaming and you had to wait almost an entire year, 9 months to a year for a movie to be released on HBO or Cinemax or Showtime or wherever, uh, or any of those cable stations. That's how it was back in the day. Um, Immediately it was something that you like that I personally gravitated towards because I was just first of all, I didn't grow up. The Mission Impossible series was on before I was born. It was Tom Cruise, who was one of the biggest stars in 1996. He's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, of course. And it was just something that I didn't know much about as I believe I was what, 1996. I'm 17. Yeah, seven when it came out, like 17, 18 years old. So I gravitated towards it immediately. Uh, by the way, some of the characters like the Vin Rames character, Luther, charismatic. You had some good villains. I thought John Voight and John Renault, who of course was a professional, were great villains. I thought both of those guys in this movie were great villains. Um, and again, I listen. The complaints about the plot. Let me tell you something. In comparisons to the next six Mission Impossibles, I don't like. I guess I gave the plot a pass. Like I was not as confused. I'm telling you, you watch the last three or four Mission Impossibles, and I'm telling you, and Fallout was great. Fallout was a classic. I like Dead Reckoning Part One more than I like Part Two, but I like Fallout. I mean, shit, I like the Philip Seymour Hoffman Mission Impossible 3, to be honest with you. Two was the worst to me. I think two, out of all the Mission Impossibles, I think two was the worst, was directed by John Woo. But you compare this plot to those plots of those other six Mission Impossibles, I think is easily, easily the most, the most, the easiest plot to follow and to keep up with. Um, Again, this is a movie that I felt like I was wondering what I would feel about it watching. Hadn't seen it in a long time. Where I feel the same way as I did when I watched it originally, and I actually felt better, to be perfectly honest with you. Again, the action scenes few and far between. The amount of just trying to keep up with who was the bad guy, even though of course haven't seen it 1,000 times, you know what's going to happen, and knew who was the bad guy, but trying to figure out like where did people turn, or what what gave away what was going to give away certain characters and what have you. It was kind of fascinating, still trying to figure that out. Um, but this movie ages well. I think this movie definitely ages well. And again, I still stand on the fact that I feel like this was the best Mission Impossible out of the seven that's been made. Real thoughts. Before I let you go, of course, I mentioned at the top of the show about there's obviously a lot going on in our country right now. You saw on Friday four black media members arrested at their respective homes, including Don Lemon and Georgia Fort. They, of course, were released basically the same day. We know the case was some bullshit. Basically arrested um, for doing their jobs, and clearly their right to cover a story, freedom of speech. I mean, freedom of speech, freedom of the press was clearly violated. We've seen what's going on with ICE in Minnesota over the past couple of weeks. Renee Good and Alex Peretti being murdered. Let's call it what it is, by ICE agents. Um, Very scary times, to say the least, in the United States. And we are at the point of no return. We are at the point of, as a society, as a country, you have the government basically declaring war on our humanity. The government is saying, fuck your First Amendment, fuck your Second Amendment, fuck your third, fourth, fifth, fuck the Constitution. Like, we don't care. We are going to come in, terrorize your community, kids, women, whoever. Doesn't matter. White, black, doesn't matter. And that could be overwhelming uh, for a citizen of this country. For if you're a citizen, for a citizen of this country, whether you're a citizen or not, it could be overwhelming because this is a part of America that you have some that a lot of people probably that people really haven't seen or have ignored in certain cases with what's going on, of course, with the police with how the police have been treating African Americans forever, and democracy is clearly under attack. And the question is now, moving forward, we know what we're dealing with. We know who we're dealing with. The question is now, what are you going to do? What are we going to do? What are you going to do? And there are things that you can do. What you can't do is become desensitized to what is happening in this country. You can't you that would be the worst thing possible thing for you to do. You can't be like, oh man, they didn't kill another person. Another person just got killed. What's for dinner? Can't do that. Um, I think that understanding your rights, knowing your rights, uh, putting pressure on your local officials, your putting pressure on your government, putting pressure on everybody, any and everybody from a standpoint of government, senator, congressman, whatever. I don't care. Superintendent. It doesn't matter. Councilman. They work for us. Period. Point blank. They work for us. Um, if we don't protect our own communities, No one will. Period. Point blank. No one will. What they're doing in Minnesota, as far as a community, um, in terms of protesting, in terms of the whistleblowing, literally the whistleblowing, in terms of alerting people of presence of ICE in their communities, it is heroic as far as I'm concerned. As far as I'm concerned, and those people are out there real willing to literally, unfortunately, die for their rights and for their freedom and for their ability to maneuver in this fascist and authoritative setting, authoritative world and country that we are turning into right now. That is the type of energy that everybody has to have, even if you don't, even if ICE isn't in your community. We have to hold the powers that be to the fire. Period. Point blank. It goes beyond voting. Of course, we know the midterms are coming up in November. We understand that, but there is even bigger than just midterms. I don't care primaries. I don't care. Electing judges. You listen. Those jobs in Capitol Hill, those are special jobs. Senators, congressmen, all those politicians love their jobs. They have great working hours. They get a lot of it, bunch of vacations. They make a shitload of money. They don't, you have lifelong you have Congress people that have been there 30, 40, 50 years. Some of them absolutely should have been out 10 or 15, 20 years ago. Some of them, frankly, should not have been elected, period. We have to keep the pressure on them. You have to. Because now, unfortunately, with because 47 has given ICE immunity from from the state basically, and it's hard from a legal standpoint to come at them federally, federal agents. It just is, especially with the far right and 47 basically having the Supreme Court in his pocket in a sense. Remember what he said a couple of weeks ago? Said if they win Congress. Sometimes he says stuff and you really got to sift through all his bullshit and all his lies. Sometimes he says stuff that actually makes sense and says things that are true for that. He said something a couple weeks ago. He says if they vote me out, if the Democrats win Congress, win the midterms, they will try to impeach me. That was a very poignant and real. That was as honest as Donald Trump has ever been, as Donald Trump has ever been in his life. I hope people took note of that statement he made. That was a real statement. That was an authentic statement. That was real talk, and that was real. That's real fear that Trump has from that standpoint. He understands that he not the smartest, sharpest knife in the drawer, but he definitely understands that you know the possibility if he does if Congress, if Democrats do retake control of the House of the House, that's on the table now. Whether or not Democrats would go that far, I haven't seen enough to say that Democrats have that type of organization or have the balls to do something that drastic. They have not shown in the past, and even during Obama's uh, during Obama's first term, when they controlled everything, they didn't they didn't take advantage of the power that they had. So I'll believe it when I see it. But Trump is a real fear, and that's the reason why he's already having putting things in place to try to to try to undermine elections, that those midterms or any election moving forward. So we gotta go straight to the mattresses. I named that title of this podcast "Straight to the Mattresses." We as a society have to go straight to the mattresses, and there's no two ways about it. Um, And if you want to know what the term straight to the mattresses is, it's a mafia term. Of course, you famously heard it in The Godfather. It means to prepare for all out war, battle, or intense, or a intense, uncompromising dispute. Period. So that's where we're at right now. Pure and simple. I like this part. I like this meaning of it. It signifies taking a firm, uncompromising stance, leaving your normal life and preparing for a long, difficult struggle or conflict. That is that that is the antithesis of where we're at right now and the type of mentality, what type of mentality we need to have moving forward, right now and also moving forward. You gotta go straight to the mattresses, pure and simple. Again, everybody is capable of doing something. I'm using my platform uh, to speak on this, and I will post some things on my Instagram as far as know your rights and some of those things to help people and educate even myself on knowing your rights as far as some of the immigration things, immigration from the immigration National Immigration Justice Center. And yes, you do have a right to record. You do have an absolute right to record. That's first. That is absolute First Amendment. Like that. Period. That's gonna wrap it up for this latest edition of the Real Deal podcast. I will see you next time. So long.